If you're someone who's in your late teens or early 20s and you want to build wealth by the time you're 30, it can be a little hard, but it's not impossible. So I'm going to give you 7 tips to help you on your way. Let's go. Now, it's kind of a pre-tip before we get into things, is that if you want to build wealth, you have to go against the grain. All of these tips require that you do and be a little different than everybody around you, because you aren't going to build wealth by accident. The first tip is to have a vision and wealth goals for your life at 30. Just saying you want to be wealthy by 30 doesn't mean anything. Does wealth mean you have $1 million in the bank? Do you want financial independence? Or is it a particular lifestyle like taking overseas trips 3 times a year? What does having wealth mean to you? Everyone has different wants and needs. A minimalist who doesn't like having a lot of stuff might not have the same goals as someone who loves luxury. So you need to understand where you specifically want to be by the time you hit 30. So dream a little bit. What kind of career do you want to be in? How much money do you want to be making? And what kind of lifestyle do you want to live? And yes, what do you want your net worth to be? But don't just stop at dreaming. Set a strategy and an action plan to get there. And that brings me to tip number 2. Maximize your income. Many people in their early 20s have no idea what they want to do for their careers, even after spending tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars on student loans. Over half of all college grads don't work in their field of study. So it's really important that you figure this out and find a career path that is right for you. And there's 3 things you need to look for. Something that you're good at, something that you like, but no matter what, you can't become financially wealthy if you don't make good money. So the third criteria is something that you can make lots of money by adding value to people. This means that in your 20s, you need to focus on getting diverse work experience until you find that sweet spot. And I don't mean changing the same fast food restaurant jobs every year. I mean different industries, different roles, different responsibilities until you can find that one thing that you can plant your stake in and make a long-term career out of. If you're 18, for example, this will give you 6 different experiences that can help you find what's right for you. Now, you mostly want to do every 2 years, not every year, unless you just hate the job that you're in and you know you won't learn anything. You want to stay there long enough to get good experience and learn new skills, but not long enough to become stagnant or complacent. Changing jobs every 2 years not only gives you diverse experience and broadens your skill set, but it also helps you earn more money. Most companies have very hard time appreciating and compensating their employees they already have. When you stay in the same role for many years, they'll fight tooth and nail not to give you more than a 2 or 3% annual raise. But they'll be willing to pay lots of money to attract talent from outside. In fact, when you switch jobs, the average salary increase is almost 15%. Now, your job is functioning as a means to pay your bills, get experience, get skills, and save money. However, that's probably not going to be enough to have a good amount of wealth by the time you're 30, unless you have a very high-paying career. You'll most likely need to add a side business into the mix. Over half of all people who became millionaires did so by starting a business, even though they represent less than 10% of the working age adult population. Most of the time, starting a business is the path to wealth. Plus, it's something that you can call your own. Even when it's a lot more work than working a regular 9-to-5 job, there's just something about building something for yourself. I can easily work 80 hours a week, but still feel better about it than working a regular 9-to-5 because it's mine. I'm doing something I enjoy, something that gives me purpose, where I can chart my own path, make my own decisions, and make a meaningful impact on a lot of people's lives. Now, all that can be done on a 9-to-5, but oftentimes people are just in their cubicles, going through the motions, wondering what they're doing with their lives. So use the skills that you learn in your job to start building a business for yourself. That side business will not only give you additional experience, but also additional income to build wealth. And who knows, maybe even surpass the income you make on your job by orders of magnitude. Now, working a job and running a side business is a lot of work, but nothing worth having comes easy. And it also doesn't mean you can't enjoy life, have downtime, and do fun things. When most people actually look at their schedules, even with a job and a side business, they still have time to enjoy themselves. They just have to control their schedules and be intentional instead of letting hours go by doom scrolling. From a numbers standpoint, the median salary for someone in their 20s is between $35,000 and $50,000 a year, which for most people is just enough to cover expenses. However, the average side hustle brings in almost $900 a month or almost $11,000 a year. Do that for 8 to 10 years, you could have over $200,000 in savings just from your side hustle. So a side hustle can be a big part in maximizing your income, and maximizing your income is a big part of how you can build wealth by the time you're 30. Now, the third tip is to network, network, network. If you're in school, network with other students, teachers, and even parents of other students. If you're out of school and working, then you can network within your company, network at church, or find clubs to join. But no matter what you're doing or where you are in your career, you gotta network. Building wealth really is a lot about who you know. And networking is a great way to find mentors and meet good people who can give you opportunities that you might not have ever thought about. Or they might even become your business partners one day. In your 20s, there's so many jobs and businesses and ways of making money that you have no clue about. You need people to open your eyes to those opportunities. You don't know what you don't know, and you can't find out what you don't know if you're tucked away in your room somewhere. Surround yourself with successful, like-minded people. Learn from others who've already built wealth and can provide valuable insights and guidance. And when you're networking with these people, don't just be the person that's always asking for help. That's okay at times, but you also need to find a way to make yourself valuable to the people you're networking with. Do they own a business? Then send them customers and clients. Do they need help running their business? Then maybe connect them with other businesses that they can collaborate with in areas where they may need help. Maybe you would support their business by being a client yourself. If you meet someone that owns a coffee shop, for example, go ahead and buy coffee from that shop instead of your local Starbucks. Doing this is not only a good way to, just be a good person, but it can pay dividends later. Those who help people will also be helped. And you're gonna need help when it comes to building wealth. And tip number 4 is to invest in yourself. You're never gonna find a greater investment than yourself. If you want a certain job, you have to learn the skills and what it takes to be good at that job. If you want to start a business, you need to learn how to start and run a business. If you want to learn how to handle money, for example, you have to learn about things like saving and investing and budgeting. By the way, if you want a copy of my budgeting template that I use, click on the link in the description and download a free copy. You can't accomplish much if you don't have the knowledge and the skills to do so. John Maxwell says the difference between where you are and where you want to be is created by the changes we are willing to make in our lives. When you want something you've never had, you must do something you've never done to get it. Much of those changes require us to acquire knowledge we've never had before, and then take action. So whether it's a class you need to take, a certification you need to acquire, or a skill you need to practice, investing in yourself will almost always pay dividends and likely help you build wealth in the future. Learning how to make money and build wealth is a skill that can be learned. You can take Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos or Warren Buffett and completely take their entire wealth and businesses and all of their money from them, and they would most likely become wealthy again in a few years. Because they know the game, they know how to build businesses and add value to people and make money. Without this skill, it's hard to build wealth. Now, all of the tips so far are really geared towards growing your income. But tip number 5 is the other side of the spectrum. But before we continue, I just want to ask that you subscribe, hit the like button, and share this video with anyone you know looking to build wealth. It not only can help them on their way, but we're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers as well, so we'd really appreciate it. Now, tip number 5 is to live below your means so you can save more money. It doesn't matter your income if you have out of control spending. It's very hard to out-earn your bad spending habits. If you want to build wealth by the time you're 30, you really have to avoid lifestyle creep and the comparison game with other people around you. Many people in their 20s look like they're living the good life because of all the great looking experiences they post on social media. They may look rich, but most likely they're broke. So you don't need to play the game they're playing. Play your own game and stay focused on the vision that you have for your life and execute the steps that it takes to get there. And again, this doesn't mean you can't ever have fun or go on vacation or eat out with your friends when you're in your 20s. It just means you have to pick and choose your experiences wisely. Most of the time, your 20s is where you can really limit your spending because you may not have a lot of other responsibilities or have to spend money on a wife and kids, for example, or a big house and extra food. Now, don't get me wrong, I think having a family actually helps you build wealth in the long run, but they can also cost money. So your 20s is a great time to not only work as much as you can and advance your career and income potential as much as possible, but it's also a great time to limit your lifestyle, limit your spending, and build wealth. I know when I was in my 20s, I could have lived in a shack with only a couch and a fridge and just been perfectly fine. It's kind of hard to limit your expenses like that when you have a family and a lot of other responsibilities. Now, the next tip to build wealth by the time you're 30 is to get out of debt. Your net worth is simply what you own minus what you owe. And it's hard to build wealth when you owe a lot. Almost everything you owe comes at a cost, and it's robbing you of your wealth. The average credit card interest rate is almost 28%. And so if you owe 10 grand on your credit card, it's costing you almost $3,000 every single year. The average student loan has an interest rate of almost 7%. The average car loan has an interest rate of almost 7% for new cars and 12% for used cars. So there's always a cost for owing money. And on top of the actual numbers, having debt just puts a burden on you and adds stress. It's really awesome to focus on your career and your family and just enjoying life without the stress of having to pay people back. There's actually a strong link between debt and poor mental health, because people with debt are more likely to have stress, depression, and anxiety. And if you think about it, this kind of makes sense. So freeing your mind from that stress and that burden can actually help you focus on building wealth. Now, tip number 7 to building wealth by the time you're 30 is to start investing as early as possible. If you want to build wealth, it requires time. As I mentioned before, the average side hustle earns almost $900 a month. But it's not enough to just earn that money and have it sitting in a safe somewhere or in a regular checking account. You have to invest it and get that money to make money and start working on your behalf. Luckily, even having money in a high yield savings account right now can give you 5% or more of interest. But if you want to build wealth by the time you're 30, you really need to get that money in the market so that you can get higher returns. Over the last 30 years, the US stock market has provided average returns of over 10.5% or almost 8% after adjusting for inflation. That goes a long way to building wealth. And unless you're going to invest that money into something that can generate even higher returns, like starting a business, then investing that money is the smart move. The easiest and most reliable way to do this is to automate your investing and to automatically have money taken out of your paycheck every pay period and invested. This way it's on autopilot and you don't have to think about it. You're just building wealth automatically. So start investing as much as possible, as early as possible, so that time can be on your side. Now, if you want to build wealth by the time you're 30, one thing you don't want to do is to marry the wrong person. You can check out this video right here to see the financial red flags you may want to look out for before marrying someone.